We continue to follow a local breaking news alert. News 4 Jax has obtained new video evidence in the case against Donald Smith. Smith is awaiting trial in a crime that shook the entire community back in 2013. He's charged in the kidnapping, rape, and murder of 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle.
Officials say the little girl's body was found in an unnamed church. A sheriff's office spokesperson says Smith was taken into custody Saturday morning after officers surrounded his van.
Smith was recently released from jail in late May. He reportedly has several previous arrests dating back to 1977 when he was convicted of assaulting a child under the age of 16.
Walmart, Jacksonville, Florida, the 21st of June, 2013. The cameras are running. They are always running in a Walmart. Every aisle, every corner, every exit. There is nowhere inside that building that isn't being recorded. And what those cameras recorded that night is something investigators say they have never forgotten. A man moves through the store. He has no basket. He is not comparing prices. He is not checking his phone for a shopping list. He is moving through those aisles the way a man moves when he is looking for something specific, and what he is looking for is not on any shelf. Wherever an 8-year-old girl goes, he follows. Aisle by aisle, turn by turn. Every time she moves, he repositions. The cameras catch all of it. Every single moment of it, documented, time-stamped, sitting on a hard drive that investigators would spend the following hours watching in a room that went completely silent. Then later, the man and the little girl walk toward the front of the store together. She is skipping. He is calm. They walk through the exit. They get into a white van with curtains covering the windows. The van pulls out past the final Walmart security camera at 9:47 p.m. Her name was Cherish Lily Periwinkle. She was 8 years old. She was supposed to be on a plane to California the next morning to see her dad. He was already excited. He was already planning what they were going to do together. Then this.
911 Robinson. Hi, at Walmart. I'm in turn. I think my daughter's been taken. What do you mean? Taken by a stranger. I can't find her. I met him in today at Dollar General. He saw that I was struggling to buy them some clothes. He drove us here to buy us some clothes, and the only reason I went with him because she said his wife was going to be here.
Okay, and she was last seen with this man?
Yes, he said he was going to McDonald's, and he hasn't been there because the store is closed right now. I had a bad feeling about him. I don't want him to kill her. I should have told him no.
The man in that footage was 56-year-old Donald James Smith, a registered sex offender. His criminal history stretched across 19 pages and nearly 4 decades. Psychiatric professionals had flagged him as one of the most dangerous men they had assessed. The state had recommended he never be returned to society. He had been out of jail for exactly 21 days. Before we continue, please be advised that this case involves deeply disturbing details surrounding the abduction, sexual assault, and murder of an 8-year-old child. It involves surveillance footage that documented a predator selecting his victim in real time. It involves a system that had 19 pages of reasons to keep this man locked away and let him walk anyway. What you are about to hear is a real crime that destroyed a real family. Some viewers may find this content deeply upsetting. Viewer discretion is once again strongly advised. Welcome to Indeed Horrific Cases. Tonight we cover a case so devastating, so preventable, and so completely documented on camera that the darkness of it lives not just in what one man did, but in every decision made by every institution that put him in a position to do it. Take a moment to hit subscribe, drop a like, and please let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And now we begin. But before we get to that Walmart, before we get to the rope in the shopping cart and the 6 hours and the recordings he never intended anyone to hear, you need to know who Cherish actually was. Because that is the part that makes everything else impossible to sit with. Cherish Lily Periwinkle was born on Christmas Eve. Her mother, Rain, called her the best Christmas gift she could have hoped for. She grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, the middle child in a family that had its complications, as most families do, but she moved through all of it the way she moved through everything. With warmth, with silliness, with a smile that everyone who ever met her described the same way, independently, years apart, without being asked to. She loved drawing animals. She would sit for hours with paper and pencils, producing cats and dogs and horses with the focused concentration of a child who had found the thing that made time disappear. She loved playing teacher with her younger sisters Destiny and Na, organizing them into a classroom, assigning them work, correcting them with the authority of someone who took the role very seriously. Anyone who watched it said the same thing. She was a natural. And that summer, the summer of 2013, Cherish had just learned to ride a bike, a blue-tinted bicycle that she had worked at until she got it and then couldn't be stopped. Being outside, whizzing around on it, her friends nearby, her sisters running alongside her, that was her favorite place in the world. Outside, moving, living. Her dad Billy said she was just the definition of pure love. He said she had so much potential. He said those things the way parents say things that are true, not the way people reach for words after the worst has happened. Her older sister Lindsay was living in Australia by then, but Cherish had Destiny and Na with her every day, and Rain, and the world of Jacksonville that she was 8 years old inside of, full of drawings and bikes and teacher games and all the ordinary things that make up a childhood that is supposed to keep going. The morning of the 21st of June 2013 was an ordinary Friday. Rain needed to get Cherish a new dress. Tomorrow morning, Saturday, Cherish was due at the airport, a plane to California. Her dad Billy was waiting for her. He had been counting down. He later said he got up that Saturday morning already excited, already thinking about picking her up, already imagining giving his little girl a hug he hadn't been able to give her in too long. He never got to give it. Billy's victim impact statement, which he read in a courtroom 5 years later, trying to hold himself together while the man who took his daughter sat 20 feet away, begins with these words: "I'm fighting back tears as I write this, but I push through because this is the last thing I can do for my child. I never really believed in angels until Cherish came into my life. And I never really believed in monsters." He paused. "I do now." The 21st of June 2013. Early evening, Rain Periwinkle takes Cherish, Destiny, and Na to a Dollar General store in Jacksonville. She is looking for clothes. Cherish needs a dress for tomorrow's flight. Money is tight and Rain is worried about how she's going to cover it. She mentions this to a store employee while the girls look around. The Dollar General has cameras. Those cameras show a man standing in the doorway of the store. He is watching Rain and the girls move around inside. He is listening. When the four of them walk back out of the store, he moves immediately. Rain later described the approach in detail in interviews on the Dr. Oz show, where she submitted to both a polygraph test and a drug test to defend herself publicly.
You can't stop all the hate. You can never stop all the hate. People are going to hate you regardless. But I want to at least clear the air. I did not know him beforehand.
Cherish Periwinkle's mother, Rain, pushes back against years-old accusations that she knowingly put her 8-year-old daughter in danger with convicted murderer Donald Smith.
Some people say I was into human trafficking. I sold her for a gift card. I sold my daughter to him for crack. I knew him. I had a relationship with him. All these crazy stories. That's not true.
She volunteered to take a lie detector test to prove she had nothing to do with her daughter's murder, and she wanted to be tested for drugs.
Polygraph tests tell you that you were tell us that you were telling the truth.
Rain, alongside Dr. Oz and talk show host Nancy Grace, says she felt she was stalked by Donald Smith, even days before the kidnapping. She said her daughter, Cherish, trusted Donald because she did.
And most importantly, in a courtroom under oath, she said he appeared at her side and introduced himself as Don. He said she looked like she had her hands full. He said he had a couple of little ones himself. He said his wife had a $150 gift card to Walmart, and they would love to use it on the family. Rain said she was hesitant.
What did he say to you when you walked out the front door of the Dollar General?
"If you really want that dress, I'll get it for you." He got snappy with me because I wouldn't get in the van. I quickened my pace and I looked through every aisle at the register. There was no one there.
Could you find Cherish?
Well, I felt foolish after that. I thought I was just being paranoid.
The van was right there. She noticed it immediately. Dark curtains covering the windows. No middle seat. The passenger seat pushed all the way forward and down. Nothing about it felt like a family vehicle. But then, he said something that broke through her hesitation. He looked into my face, Rain said, and told me I was safe. She believed him. She had 3 young daughters, no money for the dress, and a man who seemed to know exactly what a struggling mother needed to hear. She got her girls into the van. In the secretly recorded jail conversation with his mother that investigators would later obtain, Donald Smith described that moment himself. He admitted he had been watching Rain in the Dollar General, high on cocaine and drunk, watching her pick up clothes and put them back down. He saw the opportunity, and he took it. The van pulled away from the Dollar General with Rain, Cherish, Destiny, and Na inside. And in the Walmart that Donald Smith was driving them toward, one camera in particular would spend the next several hours recording everything he did next. They arrive at the Walmart on Lem Turner Road just after 8 p.m. The 5 of them walk in together. What happens next is documented on multiple cameras from multiple angles across the entire store. Rain and the girls browse clothing. This is what it looks like. A family shopping. Cherish picking things up, holding them against herself, putting them back. Destiny and Na staying close to their mother. An ordinary Friday evening in a Walmart. Except for one thing. Donald Smith is not shopping. He is watching. The footage shows him on the outside of the group, observing, repositioning, following. Wherever Cherish goes, he goes, aisle to aisle, display to display. His eyes do not move the way a man's eyes move when he is looking at clothes. They move the way a man's eyes move when he is tracking a target. At one point, he pushes a cart. Inside it, rope. Rain testified at trial that he tried to buy Cherish a pair of high-heeled women's shoes, tall ones, adult ones. She said no. She didn't understand why he wanted that for her daughter. She pushed it aside. She was still waiting for his wife. No wife ever appeared. He took Cherish to the dressing room twice during the time they were there. Rain testified to both visits. She was in another part of the store both times, looking at clothing, not wanting to seem overprotective, telling herself she was being paranoid. She was not being paranoid. The store is approaching closing time. The children are tired and hungry. 90 minutes have passed. Rain wants to pay and leave. Smith insists on buying them food from the McDonald's at the front of the store. Rain agrees. She is standing with Destiny and Na when Smith catches her eye across the store and mouths the words going to McDonald's. What do you want? Cherish bounces over to her mother. Can they get food? Rain says yes. Cheeseburgers. Cherish turns and skips toward the front of the store, following Donald Smith. Rain watches her go. Then she turns back to Destiny and Na. What Rain does not see, what she has no way of seeing from where she is standing, is what the cameras at the front of the store record next. Smith and Cherish do not stop at McDonald's. The McDonald's closed hours ago. The cameras show them walking straight past it, through the exit doors, into the car park. They get into the white van. The van moves through the car park and passes the final external security camera. Timestamp, 9:47 p.m. Back inside the store, Rain is still browsing, still waiting, still assuming her daughter is 30 meters away getting cheeseburgers. Then the announcement comes over the tannoy. Walmart is closing. Rain looks around. She walks toward the front. The McDonald's is dark and shut, and has clearly been closed for a long time. She looks for Cherish. She looks for Dawn. She starts moving faster through the store. Then she is running. Then she is screaming. Call 911. My daughter's been taken. For reasons that were never fully explained, the people around her in that store did not react with urgency. She ran through the aisles of a closing Walmart, screaming that her child had been taken, and the world around her seemed to carry on. It would be 40 minutes before an employee gave her a phone. The call is placed just after 10 p.m. Rain's voice in that recording is the sound of a mother trying to hold herself together long enough to give the information that will bring her daughter back. She tells the operator everything.
911 Robinson. Hi, at Walmart. I'm in turn. I think my daughter's been taken.
What do you mean?
Taken by a stranger. I can't find her. I met a man today at Dollar General. He saw that I was struggling to buy them some clothes. He drove us here to buy us some clothes, and the only reason I went with him because he said his wife was going to be here.
Okay, and she was last seen with this man?
Yes, he said he was going to McDonald's, and he hasn't been there because the store is closed right now. I had a bad feeling about him.
Okay, how long have you been looking for you? When was the last time you saw your daughter? How long ago?
About half an hour ago.
Okay, ma'am. What's your daughter's name?
Her name's Cherish.
And her last name?
Periwinkle with a P. I had a strange feeling about him when I first met him, and he took her to the dressing room twice. And I was hoping that she would be okay. And I was looking at the shoes. And I didn't want him to think that I was overly protective. I had a bad feeling. I thought, well, I feel like pinching myself because this is too good to be true. He was giving my 8-year-old too much attention. He wanted her to buy these really tall shoes that were women's shoes, and I told him no. I don't want him to kill her.
The Dollar General, the man who said his name was Don, the van with the curtains, the wife who never arrived, the dressing room visits, the women's shoes he tried to buy for Cherish, the bad feeling she couldn't shake from the moment she saw him. She says it all, one detail after another, because she needs them to understand that this was not a missing child. This was a taken one. The first officers arrive 10 minutes after the call ends. And then something happens that the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office would later be forced to investigate formally and answer for publicly. Despite everything Rain told them, the man's description, the van with the curtains, the dressing room, the shoes, the fact that Walmart cameras would have captured all of it, police classified the case as a missing person, not an abduction. Rain said an officer looked at her and said, "You did this," suggesting she had hidden Cherish herself as leverage in the ongoing custody dispute with Billy. Rain said she was standing in a Walmart car park at 10 o'clock at night, screaming that her daughter had been taken, and a police officer told her she had done it herself. A be on the lookout for Cherish and the white Dodge van was not broadcast until 11:36 p.m., nearly 2 hours after Rain's call. At 3:30 a.m., investigators formally named their suspect, Donald James Smith, 56 years old, registered sex offender. His file was right there in the system, 19 pages of it. The Amber Alert was not issued until 4 a.m., more than 6 hours after Rain called 911. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office later conducted an internal investigation into the response that night. Multiple officers were cited for failure to conform to work standards. The lieutenant in charge of the homicide division was removed from his position. The question that investigation could not answer, the question Rain has been asking ever since, is whether those 6 hours made the difference, whether an Amber Alert at 10 p.m. instead of 4 a.m. would have meant they reached Cherish before Donald Smith made the decision he made in the dark beside a creek behind a church. Nobody can answer that, but the timeline will not let anyone stop asking. Donald James Smith is arrested for the first time for sexually assaulting a child under the age of 16. He is processed. He moves on. He is convicted of attempted kidnapping. He had tried to lure 2 teenage girls into his van. The method is identical to what he would do to Cherish 21 years later. A van, a lure, a girl he had selected. He is convicted and sentenced and eventually released. The years between 1977 and 2013 contain arrests for burglary, battery, making obscene phone calls, impersonating a government official, and a string of sexually related offenses that fill 19 pages of official record. Former prosecutor Rick Alexander reviewed that file and said, "He looks like he's never stopped." Anybody in law enforcement looks at this rap sheet and knows he's trouble. He also said he was shocked at how little prison time Smith had actually served, given the nature and volume of the crimes. This is the moment that should have ended everything. As Smith was preparing to leave prison, state psychiatrists assessed him and reached a conclusion that placed him in the rarest category in the Florida system. They recommended civil commitment, the mechanism designed specifically to keep the most dangerous sexual predators confined, even after their sentence has ended. Only 1% of all sex offenders and predators receive this recommendation. 1%. Smith received it. He was sent to a civil commitment facility near Tampa. The process required a unanimous jury to make the commitment permanent, but the jury that heard the case never received the full psychiatric assessment. The state's concerns and the psychiatrist's conclusions, the evidence that had placed Smith in that 1%, were never properly presented. The commitment was not made permanent. He walked out. Smith is charged with making obscene phone calls to a 10-year-old girl named Christina and impersonating a social worker from the Florida Department of Children and Families in order to infiltrate her family. He pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges. Because it was not a felony conviction, he did not meet the criteria required to trigger a re-evaluation under the sexually violent predator statute. He served 14 months. Christina's mother, Stephanie, spoke publicly after Cherish was killed. She said, "He was let out for 21 days before he did this and killed a child. 21 days after his release from jail. That is how long it took." Through the night of June 21st and into the early hours of June 22nd, the search spreads across Jacksonville. Air units, K-9 units, officers covering the Dollar General and the Walmart. Motels and hotels searched, addresses of known sex offenders visited one by one. Then a call comes in from a member of the public who has been watching the news.
Hi, we're calling about a suspicious van over here, a white van.
And how long ago did you see it?
720. Yeah, 720.
It was like that. We
didn't know anything until just now. It's not there anymore, but we don't know if he dumped anything because we heard a girl just got abducted from Walmart.
All right, and you said it's now gone?
Yes, ma'am.
But you think he may have, just in case he might have dumped something?
Right, we don't know, but just in case, it looked suspicious because it was all the way to the back.
At 9 a.m. the following morning, officers spot the white van moving on the highway. They move to intercept.
Driver, step out of the vehicle. Face away from us. Keep your hands in the air. Stop.
Donald Smith steps out. He is soaking wet. Around him in the van are items from Walmart. K-9. Officer Charles Wilkie looks at Smith's clothes. He looks at the wetness. He looks at the direction of the creek behind the church they had identified from the witness call. Officer Wilkie later testified to exactly what happened in that moment.
Officials say the little girl's body was found in an unnamed church. A sheriff's office spokesperson says Smith was taken into custody Saturday morning after officers surrounded his van.
Smith was recently released from jail in late May. He reportedly has several previous arrests dating back to 1977 when he was convicted of assaulting a child under the age of 16. WLTV reports investigators are now transitioning the way they're handling the case from an abduction investigation to a murder investigation. For Newsy, I'm Logan Tittle.
Donald Smith is placed in an interrogation room and left alone for an hour. The camera in that room records him sitting at the table. At one point, he appears to fall asleep. When investigators enter and read him his Miranda rights, he declines to speak. He declines to answer a single question.
You answer questions, you have the right to stop answering questions at any time and consult a lawyer. You understand that? This is an investigation of the abduction and murder of a
Cherish periwinkle.
8-year-old female. We'd like to ask you questions about it. You want to talk to us?
Officer Wilkie later described him. He never showed any emotion, no arrogance. It was almost like you caught me, but you didn't stop me. There was not a hint of remorse. But Donald Smith could not stop talking, just not to the police. In a secretly recorded conversation between Smith and his mother obtained by investigators, the truth begins to come through in fragments.
You did Walmart. I could go out anywhere. We went in Walmart. We were shopping in Walmart. I was talking to her. We were going together for an hour or so. I know Walmart has more cameras than a bank. You're crazy.
He admits he was drunk and high on cocaine when he spotted Rain in the Dollar General. He describes watching her pick up clothes and put them back. He describes getting them into the van.
So I went outside, smoked a little bit, and she came out. I go to Walmart. If you want, you go to Walmart. If you want to Walmart, you can take her dress. She goes, well, I don't know. It just says a Joe. I like talk to strangers, so I understand. So I told her, you can get a dress and a pair of shoes for your kid. The kid was going to California the next morning.
He claims that at Walmart, after a few minutes, he wanted to get away from the family, something the surveillance footage directly contradicts.
I'm going to get away from these people because now that I want to ride home. I want to ride home. I'm sure. So anyway, the little girl, Cherish, I'm walking out, she comes up. And I said, no, go back there with your mom. She goes, I'm going with you. I said, no, go ask your mom if she wants something to eat. I've been crying away, I'm trying to get away. She comes running up. And I'm panicking. Now I'm panicking. Now I'm a sex offender.
He never admits to the sexual assault. He says he does not view children as sexual objects. He says he snapped. He says his mind just left him. And then he tells his mother that his only way out is a mental health and competency defense.
I don't view children as sexual objects. I don't view them as sexual objects or sexual partners. All I know is that I snapped.
Never be able to work through all this. Never. I'll never be okay. So rather than spend the rest of my life being humiliated by myself, telling all this crap in my head, I might as well just die with it. Easier to just die with it because I'll probably never get through it anyway. That's what my brain's telling me. I need a very simple book.
He asks her to buy him a book of psychiatric disorders. Then comes a second recording.
Man, when you look at this girl, you're like, whoa. You know how old they are? About 12, 13. You can see their wine glass on her. That's right in my alley, right there. That's my target area right there. That's what I go after. Well, you have fun with that one. Yeah, I like to run into her at Walmart.
This man was on trial for the rape and murder of an 8-year-old girl. And from a jail cell, facing death, he sat with another inmate and described his preferred targets as though he was having a conversation about nothing at all. 6 weeks after Cherish was found, the state removed Destiny and Na from Rain and their father Aaron. The reasoning involved the circumstances surrounding Cherish's death and whether the children's welfare could be assured. Rain briefly lost visitation rights. They were partially restored 2 supervised hours every Monday. She would show up. She would sit with her daughters for 2 hours. Then she would leave. Cherish's older sister Lindsay, living in Australia, began fighting to adopt Destiny and Na. She said she hit a brick wall at every turn. Meanwhile, a social worker who had been helping the family created a Facebook page advocating for the girls to be adopted. Rain said this felt like a betrayal. This was someone she had trusted, someone she considered a friend, now publicly campaigning for her children to be given to someone else. In 2017, after Rain did not complete the required case plan, Destiny and Na were placed for adoption. They were adopted by their aunt and moved to Australia. Rain had last seen them during a supervised visit. She told them she would keep fighting. Rain said that after Cherish's murder, she was unable to hold stable employment. People recognized her name. She was turned away from jobs. She was blamed publicly and privately for what happened. On top of everything else, she was in a grief so heavy, she described it as a really dark place. She said, "I am their mother. I would die for them. I gave birth to them. I have raised them from day one." Billy's attorney said the custody battle for Cherish over the years before her death had been among the most difficult things he had handled. He said Billy was not going to pursue legal action against Rain and needed to move forward with his life as best he could. How do you move forward from that Saturday morning? You got up excited. You were going to the airport. You were going to give your little girl a hug. And instead, the phone rang. Cherish was the light of my life, Billy wrote, and in the lives of so many people, and Donald Smith took that light out of this world. Dr. Valerie Ralph performed Cherish Periwinkle's autopsy. Her findings, presented in court, documented what Donald Smith did to an 8-year-old girl in the hours between the Walmart exit and the creek behind that church. Blunt force trauma to the back of the head, evidence of repeated sexual assault. She had been gagged. She had been strangled with such sustained and deliberate force that she had bled from her eyes. 26 autopsy photographs were entered into evidence during the trial. When Dr. Ralph was asked to walk the jury through the specific injuries visible in those photographs, she made it through the initial questions. Then she stopped. "I'm sorry, I have to take a break. Can I just have like 5 minutes? Do you want a 5-minute break? I think we'll all take a 10-minute break." A medical examiner, a professional who has spent her career documenting the worst things that happen to human beings in Jacksonville, Florida. She could not continue without stopping.
Side of a scalp right there.
And how is that caused, Dr. Rao?
Blunt trauma.
I'm going to show you 2 more photographs of the dissection taken of Cherish Periwinkle's throat. Will you first tell the jury what you saw when you dissected her throat?
Yes, so what we do is, I'm sorry, I have to take a break. Can I just have like 5 minutes?
Do you want a 5-minute break? I think we'll all take a break for 10 minutes. Thank you.
The jury sat in that courtroom and watched the woman who had performed the autopsy ask for 5 minutes because she could not get through the photographs without breaking. The room was silent in a way that rooms are only silent when something truly unbearable has filled all the available air. That silence said more than any testimony could. February 2018, 4.5 years after Cherish Periwinkle was buried. The state opens with these words: Cherish Periwinkle was 8 years old. She weighed 67 pounds. Separated from her mother, from her little sisters, from all she knew that was safe in this world, she spent the last petrifying hours of her life with him. Cherish did not die quickly, and she did not die easily. In fact, hers was a brutal and tortured death. The prosecution calls Rain Periwinkle as its first witness. She takes the stand and answers every question. The defense opens by suggesting they will place blame on Rain, that getting into the van was a poor decision, that she should have known better, that her choices that night contributed to what happened. Then, the prosecution finishes its case, and it is time for the defense to cross-examine Rain Periwinkle. Smith turns to his attorneys and tells them not to. His reasoning, reported afterward she had been through enough. The defense calls no witnesses, offers no closing argument. The jail recording with the inmate is played in full for the jury. The inmate recording, the target area, the Walmart, all of it, out loud, in a courtroom, with Cherish's family sitting in the gallery. The jury deliberates for 19 minutes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's my understanding the jury has reached a verdict. Is that correct?
In the Circuit Court of the 4th Judicial Circuit in Port Duval County, Florida, case number 16, 2013, State of Florida versus Donald James Smith, verdict count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. We further find the killing was premeditated. We further find the killing was done during the commission or attempted commission of a felony with kidnapping and sexual battery. Verdict count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of kidnapping as charged in the indictment. Verdict count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of sexual battery upon a person less than 12 years of age as charged in the indictment. So say we all done at Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida. Signed the 4th person, February 14, 2018.
The penalty phase introduces one more voice nobody in that courtroom expected. A woman named Kiran. She does not share her last name publicly. What she shares is a memory she has been carrying since she was 13 years old. Donald Smith had tried to kidnap her. She had managed to get free. She hid while he searched for her. She testified to what she heard him say while she was hiding. "I know you're in there, you little bitch, and I'm going to find you." She had escaped. Cherish had not. The pattern between those two events spans decades. and is identical in its structure and intent. Same man, same van, same method, different outcome. The defense presents everything it has: brain abnormalities documented by imaging studies, childhood trauma, a history of abuse. A psychiatrist describes orbital frontal syndrome, hypersexuality, poor impulse control, recidivism. Another expert suggests epilepsy or neurodegenerative disease as possible factors. The argument being made carefully, professionally, is that Donald Smith's brain is broken in ways he cannot fully control. The jury considers all of it. They weigh the medical testimony against the 19 pages of criminal history, against the rope in the shopping cart, against the jail recording, against the creek behind the church. They recommend death, unanimously. Judge Mallory Cooper imposes the sentence and says directly to Donald Smith, "You have not only forfeited your right to live among us, you have forfeited your right to life at all. May God have mercy on your soul." Outside the courthouse, anti-death penalty protesters gather. Rain walks out and confronts them. The exchange is raw and public and represents exactly how complicated and how human this case is. The question of what justice looks like when a child is already gone. Billy speaks to reporters. His voice is steady. His eyes are not.
No, it's not justice. The legal system works the way it works. But he's been living for 5 years after the death of my daughter. And he's going to be living until the death penalty is either done or whatever the case may be. And that's not justice. She didn't get that option to live those many years.
Florida Supreme Court reviews Donald Smith's conviction and upholds it unanimously. The evidence of guilt, the court says, is overwhelming. Nearly 10 years after Cherish Periwinkle was buried, her killer's case returns to a Duval County courtroom. Smith's new legal team has filed a motion for a new trial, citing 12 separate reasons they argue his original representation was ineffective.
Yeah, that's right. She, like many people in our community, paid attention to Donald Smith's trial in 2018. He has a new defense team for this appeal, claiming his previous defense team failed in several areas during the trial. It's been 5 years since Donald Smith was sentenced to death for murdering 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle in 2013. In April, Smith's lawyers filed a 78-page appeal of the conviction, with multiple claims against his previous lawyers and the overall trial.
Smith's original defense attorney, Julie Schlatt, takes the stand and testifies about those decisions. On the plea deal question, she says directly, "We certainly knew, as Mr. Smith did, that we were not going to be successful in the guilt phase." The state's response is equally direct. The prosecution points out that Smith complimented his attorneys multiple times after the trial, that he had no objection to them at the time, and that regardless of any procedural argument, the evidence against him was DNA, witness statements, surveillance footage across 2 separate stores, phone data, a GPS trail, recorded confessions, and the testimony of a man whose jail cell conversations confirmed exactly who he was and what he intended. Former juror Paul Henson speaks to the media about the motion.
His demeanor during the whole trial was kind of odd to me, that he'd wink at the camera or he'd glare, not glare back, but he just kind of would stare at us. Kind of made me kind of funny feeling inside that he acted the way he did.
Paul Henson is still processing a mix of emotions from the Donald Smith trial.
And a lot of people said, I couldn't have done it, that I couldn't have done it or I wouldn't have done it.
He's haunted by the evidence photos.
The pictures themselves are graphic enough, but when you have a medical examiner telling you exactly the torture and the pain inflicted on her for who knows how long, nobody should have to go through that.
May 2024, the senior circuit judge denies the motion for a new trial. The arguments regarding inadequate representation are insufficient to overturn the conviction or the death sentence. The evidence was overwhelming. It remains overwhelming. The 10th of December, 2025. Smith's attorneys take the case to the Florida Supreme Court. Oral arguments are heard. The court is currently processing the final review of his post-conviction appeal. He remains on death row. Cherish Periwinkle would be 19 years old today. Here is what I want you to carry when this video ends. Cherish Lily Periwinkle had just learned to ride her bike that summer. She spent hours drawing animals with the focused concentration of a child who had found something she loved. She organized her little sisters into a classroom and took the role of teacher with complete seriousness. She was flying to California the next morning to see her dad. She did nothing wrong on the evening of the 21st of June, 2013. She was 8 years old, in a Walmart, and she skipped after a man to get food because her mother said yes, and she trusted her mother. That is the full extent of what Cherish did. She trusted the people around her. She skipped. The man she followed had been selecting her since the Dollar General. The cameras documented it. The rope in the cart documented it. The women's shoes documented it. The dressing room documented it. Everything that happened in that Walmart was deliberate and planned and recorded by cameras that nobody who could have stopped it was watching in time. Donald James Smith had 19 pages of criminal history. Psychiatrists had placed him in the 1% of offenders considered too dangerous to return to society. The civil commitment process failed. The 2009 plea was a misdemeanor. The Amber Alert took 6 hours. An officer told a mother she did this to herself while her daughter was still alive somewhere in Jacksonville. Every single one of those things had to go wrong in sequence, and they all did. Billy Periwinkle wrote in his victim impact statement, "Cherish isn't here to speak for herself. She will never again be able to speak, or laugh, or dream. And as her parent, I will never hear her voice, or know her thoughts, or see her grow into the incredible person I know she could have become. She was the definition of pure love," he said. She was 8 years old. She had just learned to ride her bike, and the last thing she did in this world was skip through a Walmart on a Friday night, thinking she was getting cheeseburgers. She deserved every year that was taken from her. She deserved all of them. If Cherish's story stayed with you, and I believe it did, then do one thing right now. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Every case on this channel is told the way it deserves to be told. With the full weight of it, with honesty, with the evidence, with respect for the people at the center of it. Share this video. Every share puts Cherish's name in front of more people who need to know what happened to her and what allowed it to happen. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And tell me this, because I genuinely want to know. Do you think the civil commitment system needs to be reformed so that psychiatric recommendations for the most dangerous offenders cannot be dismissed by procedural failures? Because that question was answered in Jacksonville in 2013. Say her name in the comments. Cherish Lily Periwinkle, born Christmas Eve, loved bikes and animals and playing teacher with her sisters. She was going to California the next morning. She deserved to get there. I'll see you in the next one.
Residents are on high alert tonight after last night's latest armed robbery. This is the third attack in this neighborhood in 2 weeks. All of the victims are women. Continuing to follow developing news after a young woman's body was found outside Scioto Grove Metro Park.
Also, no official word quite yet as to who this body belongs to. Of course, once we learn that information, hopefully today, we will be sure to pass it on to you.
Here's the latest. A body found in Scioto Grove Metro Parks has been identified as missing Ohio State University student Reagan Tote.
Prosecutors said Golsby is a repeat violent offender and a sexually violent predator, and said his criminal history, not his race, is what makes him eligible for the death penalty.
He had abducted a woman, forced her to take out money from an ATM machine, and then raped her.
And that's not even the worst of it.
She was also pregnant.
If you're going to have a death sentence in this state or any other state, this is the kind of case that it should be used upon.
February 9th, 2017. Scioto Grove Metro Park, Grove City, Ohio. Just after noon, a man is driving through the park when he sees something in the field. He slows down. He's not sure what he's looking at. He pulls over and calls 911.
Hello, 911.
Yeah, I think there's a body out here at Scioto Grove Metro Park. I don't know if this is a fake or what. I'm afraid to get close to it. This is really freaking. Please hurry, send somebody.
Okay. Well, is there any clothing? Can you see from where you're standing?
No, nude. It's nude. It's bloody. It's got the arm over its face. I'm afraid to get near it. I can't tell if it's fake or what, man. It's about daylight.
Okay. Can you tell if it's male or female or anything like that?
It's a female. I don't know if that's real, man.
Okay, don't get close to it. I don't.
No,
want
I
you to,
can't. I'm scared to death of it.
Just stay out of it because it'll be a crime scene if it's
right. God almighty, I hope that's a dummy.
It wasn't a dummy. It was a young woman, 21 years old, lying naked in the grass. Gunshot wounds to her head. No phone, no wallet, no clothes anywhere nearby. She had been there since sometime after midnight. Her name was Reagan Tokes. She was a senior at Ohio State University. She was weeks away from graduating. The night before, she had finished her shift at a restaurant in Columbus, walked to her car, and vanished. But here is what makes this case different from every other case you have ever heard. Here is the detail that will stay with you long after this video ends. The man who did this to Reagan Tokes was wearing a GPS ankle monitor entire time. Every step he took the night he killed her was recorded. The ATMs he forced her to, the alley, the park. All of it logged, tracked, time-stamped, sitting in a database. And nobody looked at a single second of it until she was already dead. Before we continue, please be advised that this case involves deeply disturbing details of abduction, sexual assault, and the murder of a 21-year-old woman who was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a young woman who was weeks away from the beginning of everything she had worked for, and a system that had every tool it needed to stop what happened and chose to do nothing. What you are about to hear is a real crime that devastated a real family. Some viewers may find this content deeply upsetting. Viewer discretion is once again strongly advised. Welcome to Indeed Horrific Cases. Tonight, we uncover a case so preventable, so infuriating, and so heartbreaking that the darkness of it doesn't just live in what one man did. It lives in every decision that put him in a position to do it. Take a moment to hit subscribe, drop a like. Please let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And now we begin. But before we get to that night, before we get to the ankle monitor and the 6 robberies and the $60 and the lawsuit that got thrown out, you need to know who Reagan Tokes actually was, because that is the part that makes everything else impossible to sit with. Reagan Delaney Tokes was born on the 13th of March, 1995, in Lucas County, Ohio. From the moment she arrived, according to her mother Lisa, she was ready to go. Born with her eyes wide open, a ball of energy from day one, the kind of person who made a decision and meant it. When Reagan was a little girl, her dad Toby took her to an Ohio State University football game. She looked around that stadium, felt whatever it is you feel when you're a child, and something just clicks into place. She decided right then and there that this was where she was going to college. Not a wish, not a hope, a decision. Years later, when the time came to fill out applications, her mom Lisa gently suggested they look at a few other schools too, just to keep options open. Reagan looked at her and said, "Mom, this is the school I want. Don't worry, I'm going to get in." She got in. She enrolled as a pre-med student. She worked hard, kept her grades up, played varsity tennis and lacrosse, and somewhere around her second year, came face to face with organic chemistry. In her own words, it kicked her butt. So she switched her major to psychology. And once she made that switch, everything lined up. She already knew what she was going to do. She had the temperament for it, in a way that most people spend entire careers trying to learn. Reagan was born with it. Her mom described the family's unwritten rule. If you have the power to make someone's life better, it's your responsibility to do so. Reagan didn't just know that rule. She lived it. In every direction, at every age, in every room she walked into. Her church, her mission trips, the friends she made everywhere she went. Her roommates at OSU, Jackie, Madison, Kirsten, and Stephanie, thrown together at random, immediately inseparable. Every single person who knew Reagan said the same things about her unprompted, independently, years apart. Warm, caring, full of life. The kind of person who made you feel like you were the only one in the room worth talking to. There is a detail her mom shared that tells you exactly who Reagan was in one image. She would make people wait on the pavement while she stopped to move insects out of the way. Bugs. She couldn't stand to see anything hurt. she would hold up a whole group of people to crouch down and move a beetle off the path. That is not something people say about someone after they're gone to make them sound better than they were. That is who she was. Everyone said it. She had recently ended a relationship with her boyfriend Jake. Mutual, amicable. Both of them focused on finishing their degrees, on what came next. She was in her final semester. She had a job lined up in Cleveland, a step toward her own practice, a future that had taken shape exactly the way she planned it. Her dad had emailed her a link to diploma frames. She posted about it online. She said she'd be lying if it didn't make her tear up. She was that close to the finish line. She lived off campus in Columbus and called her parents every single day. Every day. Not because they asked her to, because she wanted to. It was just who she was. Her mom, her dad, her younger sister Mackenzie, they were the people she kept close no matter how far college took her. On the evening of February 8, 2017, Reagan texted her dad from work. "I can't talk right now, Dad. I'll call you when I leave tonight." Toby put his phone down and waited for it to ring. It never rang. Wednesday, February 8, 2017. Reagan works her shift at Bodega Bar and Restaurant in the short North District of Columbus. It's a quiet midweek evening, nothing unusual. At 9:45 p.m. she clocks out, says goodbye to her coworkers, and walks to her car parked around the corner. She has done this dozens of times. This is just a Wednesday. She never makes it home. Back in Florida, Toby starts checking his phone just after 10 p.m. Nothing. He calls. It rings. He texts. He calls again. By midnight, the calls are going through, but she isn't picking up. By 2 a.m., the phone goes silent completely. The battery is dead. Toby is sitting in the dark 1,000 miles away, telling himself there is a reasonable explanation for this. There isn't one. He knows that. He tells Lisa something is wrong. In Columbus, Reagan's roommates wake up to an apartment that doesn't feel right. Her bed is untouched. Her bag is on the floor where she left it. Her laptop hasn't moved. Nobody heard her come in. One of her roommates knocks on her bedroom door just in case. Nothing. They try not to spiral. Maybe she stayed at a friend's place. Maybe her phone died and she didn't want to wake anyone. But they know Reagan, and Reagan doesn't go quiet. Reagan calls. Reagan texts. Reagan lets people know she's okay because she knows people worry, and she never wants anyone to worry on her account. By mid-morning, they're calling everyone they can think of. Nobody has seen her. Nobody has heard from her. Her university confirms she didn't make it to her morning class. Her mom, Lisa, calls the police to report her missing. She is told she cannot file the report. She was not the last person to see Reagan. The restaurant was. This is the rule. So Reagan's roommates go back to Bodega, and the manager files it for them.
So we had a employee leave work last night, and she has not been home. Her phone is off. Nobody can find her because she hasn't been home at all either. Her mom's been calling, looking for her. We can't find her car around work.
By the time that report is filed, Reagan has already been found. A man driving through Soto Grove Metro Park at around noon spots a shape in the field off the path. He can't tell what it is. He calls 911. He's scared to get any closer. He stands at a distance and describes what he can see. When officers arrive, they find a young woman lying in the grass, naked, 2 gunshot wounds to her head, no clothing, no bag, no phone, nothing to tell them who she is. What she has is a small necklace and a tattoo, a circle about the size of a $50. On her side, to her it meant karma. Detectives drive to Bodega, where Reagan's roommates are waiting. They ask about the tattoo. The roommates go still. Reagan has a tattoo that matches exactly, and the necklace, she never took it off.
A missing persons case in Columbus is now a murder investigation. Police have confirmed the body found yesterday in a Grove City park is an OSU student. Good evening and thanks for joining us at 5. I'm Mark Taylor.
And I'm Ellie Merritt. 21-year-old Reagan Tokes was last seen Wednesday night leaving a bar in the Short North where she worked. And tonight we have team coverage with reaction from OSU students and employees who work in the Short North.
She was a loving, awesome, amazing person. I know she was studying at OSU and she had a great personality, super warm and welcoming. And
Tokes had worked her shift as a waitress here Wednesday evening. The Columbus Police Missing Persons report says that according to a bodega employee, Tokes usually has a bartender walk her to her car, but didn't when she left Wednesday night. So did something happen here or somewhere else? Was her killer someone she knew or a total stranger? If investigators know the answers, they're not saying. Tokes.
A phone call goes out to Lisa and Toby in Florida. Detective asks if Reagan Delaney Tokes is their daughter. Yes, they say. Is she okay? No, the detective says. Is she alive? No. Lisa later described the feeling as being outside of her own body, like there had to be a mistake. Like this was someone else's story, like the detective had the wrong family. Reagan had texted her dad from work the night before. She was weeks away from graduating. There was no version of this that made sense. There was no mistake. Reagan Tokes was 21 years old. She was lying in a field in Grove City, Ohio, 2 gunshot wounds to the head. And the man who put her there had a GPS device strapped to his ankle that had recorded every step of his movements the night before. Reagan's car was found the next day on a residential street about 10 miles from the park. Garbage truck license plate reader caught it. A system that cross-references commercial vehicle routes with police databases, flagging anything that shouldn't be where it is. Reagan's silver Acura shouldn't have been there. When investigators got to it, the first thing they noticed was the smell. Gasoline, strong and unmistakable. Someone had tried to set the car on fire. They weren't very good at it. Cigarette burns on the front passenger seat. Scorch marks that hadn't caught. And in the trunk, a red gas can, the kind you buy at a petrol station, still partially full. Inside the car, 2 things told the story. ATM receipts. Multiple transactions across multiple banks, all in the same night. Most declined, one successful for exactly $60, and cigarette butts, inside and outside the vehicle. Reagan didn't smoke. She had never smoked. She didn't allow anyone to smoke inside her car. Those cigarette butts were not hers. Investigators traced the gas can to a Speedway station in Columbus. CCTV there showed a man buying it that same night, a few hours after Reagan was last seen. They had a face. They sent the cigarette butts to the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation and asked for a rush. The lab cleared its schedule and made this the priority. The DNA results came back within hours. The profile belonged to Brian Lee Golsby, 29 years old, already in the system. A registered sex offender, already in the system. That phrase is where this case becomes something else entirely, because Brian Lee Golsby wasn't just in the database. He was on probation. He had been out of prison for exactly 3 months. 3 months. To understand how Reagan Tokes ended up in that field, you need to understand who Brian Lee Golsby was before he ever walked near Bodega. Because this didn't start on February 8, 2017. This started years before that. The people who were supposed to be paying attention had every opportunity to see it coming. In 2010, Golsby approached a woman in a car park as she was getting out of her vehicle. She was 8 months pregnant. Her 2-year-old son was in the back seat. Golsby put a knife to her throat. He forced her to put her hands over her child's face so the boy wouldn't see what was happening. He sexually assaulted her in that car park. Then he forced her to drive him around Columbus, stopping at ATMs demanding she withdraw cash. When that wasn't enough, he made her drive him to her apartment. He assaulted her again inside her home, and before he left, he told her to brush her teeth and rinse her mouth thoroughly. He had read enough to know what that would do to the DNA evidence. Then he stole her DVD player and walked out. Think about that sequence for a second. A pregnant woman, a 2-year-old child, a knife at the throat, assault, a drive to multiple ATMs, a second assault inside her home, an instruction to destroy DNA evidence, and then he took the DVD player on the way out. He was arrested. He was charged with 2 armed robberies, 3 kidnappings, and a rape. And then the woman who had been through all of that, who was still heavily pregnant, who had a toddler to protect, told prosecutors she was too frightened to testify. She was scared of what he might do. She had seen exactly what he was capable of. She couldn't face a courtroom, so the charges were negotiated down. 2 armed robberies, 3 kidnappings, and a rape became 1 count of robbery and 1 count of attempted rape. He was sentenced to 6 years. He served 5.5. He was released in November 2016, 6 months before his sentence was complete. In the years he spent in prison, between that conviction and his release, Brian Lee Golsby accumulated 52 separate disciplinary infractions. 52. He was moved between 5 different prisons because his behavior was too disruptive to manage in a single facility. Fighting, threatening, refusing, over and over and over again. When the time came to let him out, the system released him anyway. It strapped a GPS monitor to his ankle, placed him in a halfway house program. It assigned him a parole officer, and it set him loose on the streets of Columbus. 3 months later, Reagan Tokes finished her shift, walked to her car, and didn't come home. Here is what you need to understand about the device on Brian Goldsby's ankle, because this is the part of this story that goes beyond one man and one crime and becomes something much larger and much more infuriating. The ankle monitor logged his location every single minute. Every minute, from the day he was released in November 2016 to the day he was arrested in February 2017.
Got a handcuff on. Yeah. You get one? Yeah. Got on here real quick. Talk about anything if you ask questions, all that stuff. Just tell him Nick's gonna talk to him. That's all. That's the only answer to give him.
It recorded where he went, how fast he was moving. Every street, every building, every turning, all of it in a database in real time. What it did not do was alert anyone. The system used in Goldsby's case was passive monitoring. His data was collected by a private company that operated the device. That data would then be passed to his parole officer. The parole officer would review it at their scheduled check-in. Not in real time. Not when the data showed something alarming. At the next scheduled meeting, which could be days away, which could be longer. His parole officer was responsible for monitoring dozens of offenders simultaneously, dozens of ankle monitors, dozens of data logs. One person looking at all of it when they had time between everything else on their desk, and nobody had programmed any restrictions into Goldsby's device at all. No curfew, no restricted zones, no alert that would trigger if he was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. The device was on his leg and it was recording. That was the full extent of it. Now here is what was in that database, sitting untouched while nobody looked. Between the 24th of January and the 7th of February 2017, the 14 days before Reagan was murdered, Brian Lee Goldsby committed 6 armed robberies across the Short North and German Village neighborhoods of Columbus. He robbed people at knife point. He robbed people at gunpoint. He pistol-whipped a woman across the face. He abducted a man and drove him to a cash machine at gunpoint, demanding money. 6 separate attacks, 14 days. All of it while he was on probation for a violent sexual assault. All of it while a device on his leg recorded his exact location at every moment. The news was covering it. Local residents were terrified.
Residents are on high alert tonight after last night's latest armed robbery. This is the 3rd attack in this neighborhood in 2 weeks. All of the victims are women. NBC4's Tyler Carter is live from German Village tonight, where residents have called a safety meeting. Tyler?
Yes, Ellie, since that last attack last night, the German Village Society called a meeting with Columbus police, and residents is going on right now in their headquarters. They want to know exactly what is going on in this neighborhood, and residents I spoke with say they are not taking these attacks lightly.
I heard someone yell help, and so I ran outside, and half of the neighbors were already out here.
Last night, just before 10 o'clock, a woman who lives in this German Village neighborhood on Mohawk and Frankfurt Street was robbed by gunpoint and attacked. Columbus police say the woman was getting things out of the trunk of her car when a man walked up behind her and demanded she give him her purse.
Of February 8th, 2017, the ankle monitor tracked Golsby getting on a Columbus City bus. It tracked him riding to the short north, tracked him getting off near the area where Bodega sits. It tracked him walking at a steady pace through the streets around the restaurant. And then at 9:47 p.m., something changed. His speed went from 3 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. He was in Reagan's car. From that moment, the device tracked everything. The Chase Bank on East Gay Street, the Huntington Bank, back to Chase, the alley, the gas station, the park. Reagan's last hours on this earth are documented in a government database with minute-by-minute precision, and not one person was watching it happen. The ankle monitor on Brian Goldsby's leg recorded every step he took the night. He killed Reagan Tokes, every location, every movement, every minute. It recorded all of it, and nobody looked at a single second of it until she was already dead. Now here is what the evidence, the surveillance footage, the ATM receipts, the GPS data, and Goldsby's own partial admissions tell us happened between 9:45 p.m. on February 8th and the early hours of February 9th, 2017. Reagan walked out of Bodega just before 10 p.m. Her car was parked around the corner. It was cold. It was a Wednesday. She was heading home. Goldsby had been walking the streets in that area for over an hour. He forced his way into her car. He had a gun. He told her to drive. She drove. He directed her to a Chase Bank. She tried to withdraw $500 from the ATM. The transaction was declined. He directed her to a Huntington Bank. She tried again. Declined. Surveillance cameras at both locations captured a shadowy figure in the passenger seat of her car. You couldn't make out features, but you could see there was someone there, someone who wasn't Reagan. Between the second and third ATM attempt, car was parked in a dark alley in Milo Grogan. It sat there for 12 minutes. Investigators later confirmed what happened in that alley. After the alley, Goldsby directed her back to the Chase Bank. This time, she managed to withdraw $60. The receipt printed. Balance left in her account was $17.89. $60. That is what he got out of the whole night. $60. They drove to a petrol station. Footage there was grainy, the weather poor, the angle bad. They were at the furthest pump. Then they left and headed south toward Scioto Grove Metro Park. What investigators believe happened in that park, based on the physical evidence, the forensic findings, and what Goldsby himself eventually admitted, is this. He told her to get out of the car. He told her to take off her clothes. He told her to walk away from him into the field and keep walking. She walked. He followed her. He shot her in the back of the head. She fell. He walked up to her and shot her again. Reagan Tokes was 21 years old. She was in a dark field in Grove City, Ohio, in the middle of the night in February, barefoot, alone. And in her final moments, according to Goldsby himself, she did the only thing left available to her. She said the same words over and over to a man who had already decided they didn't matter. I just want to live, she said it over and over. He shot her anyway. Goldsby was arrested at 4 a.m. on February 11th. He was calm, almost chatty. He had been through an interrogation before, and he knew the shape of it. Before he would say anything meaningful, he wanted a cigarette. Investigators had to take him outside in leg shackles to smoke half of one. That was his opening condition, half a cigarette first.
Alright, it didn't just happen to stumble upon this and you're here. You're here
because we have a pretty good amount of evidence on what happened. And we want to know the truth, okay? That's all we're after. We know what's going on, we just want to know the why. Okay, so where were you Wednesday?
Cigarettes.
I can't get you any cigarettes.
I can have a cigarette. I'm gonna have to put you in some shackles, leg shackles, and we're gonna have to go outside.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Smoke.
Yeah, we can't smoke in here, man.
Hey, they're gonna want to know. We have to get all kinds of permissions before we do this.
Right.
Because
To smoke cigarettes?
yes,
Because I gotta take you out of here to do that. I can't let you smoke in here.
and they're gonna ask, is he being cooperative? Is he telling you what you want to know? So the way that works, you give me a little bit, we'll verify that you're telling us the truth, we'll give you a little bit, give and take relationship. We know what happened, we want to know why it happened.
Tell me what happened.
Well, I want you to tell me what happened.
I ain't having no cigarettes or nothing. Well, that's what the cooperation is, yeah, man. I honestly... He said I give him some, he give
Then
me
we'll
some.
talk. Brian, you're not here by accident. You're here because we have a pretty good amount of evidence on what happened. We just want to know the why. Any cigarettes? He admitted to being in the car. He admitted to the ATMs. He said he robbed her. He said he needed money. He said after the park he dropped her off, told her to wait 30 minutes before she moved. Got in the car and drove away. He said she was alive and standing in the field when he left.
Tell me about why you got in the car with her.
Did she invite you in the car? Did she invite you in the car? No. No? Okay. See, that's what we're talking about. Right? Cooperation is the way to go. Did you drive or she drive? What was her reaction when you got in the car with her? Was she scared, nervous, upset? Did she like you? Did she think you were nice? Did you treat her right? Okay, and you told her you wanted what?
Money. Right. So how much money did you get officially? $60.
That's it.
So after Chase, after you leave Chase, where do you go next? And be truthful, whatever you know.
We went to Honeyman.
Okay. Did you get any money there?
What was wrong? Card wasn't working, or she? You went to Chase. Didn't work. Went to Huntington. Didn't work. Went back to Chase. Tried a different card. Right. $60 out. Then you decided to try the other card again, right? And didn't work. From there, when you leave Chase, you want me? I'll throw a time reference out because we know what time. It was 10:33. Chase. Yeah, the second time. Okay. And you all left up till 11:40 when I got you at Turkey Hill getting gas in Grove City. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Did you use a card? I didn't. She did? Mm-hmm. Did you fill it up?
Investigators asked about the alley. He didn't have much to say about the alley. Then they changed approach. They suggested there might have been a second person involved. Maybe Golsby wasn't alone. Maybe someone else was in that car. Now was the time to say so. Golsby took that offer immediately.
With your buddy up on 3rd in the alley? Where'd your dude go? Mm-hmm. Back at the beginning, you said you were with your dude. I went back home. 100% he wasn't in that car with you? No, I was the only one that was in the car. But I think one way you could have controlled her was with a second guy. And you don't want to give me the name of the guy because you don't want to be a snitch. Yeah, you wanted money. You were out there to get money. If there was a second dude in the car, now's the time to tell me. So I can start doing that route. It's not going to make a difference. It does make a huge difference. It's not going to make a difference because in the long run, I'm still going to prison, man. I'm still going to prison, man. Well, it makes a difference. Your kids ain't going to die. We can look out for them. Help yourself out. Be the stand-up man. Tell me who the other... Tell for that girl's family, goddammit. Who was in the car with you? If I didn't bring money back for them, he used to know me. I used to go to school. Mm-hmm. He was going to kill me. So did he tell you to go up and get a girl? Huh? Whose idea was it to go get the girl? It wasn't to specifically get a specific person. It was to get money. Yes. How much money did he expect? He told me he needed about $2,000.
His name was TJ, he said, old acquaintance from school. TJ had been threatening his children. TJ told him he needed $2,000 to $3,000 that night, or he was going. to hurt his kids. TJ was the one who forced to rape her. TJ was the one who made her walk into the field. TJ was the one who pulled the trigger. TJ was 5'10".
Tall, skinny, fat, round. He ain't fat. He's like, he's about 5'11", 6 foot, roughly like 210.
He started describing TJ in elaborate detail, as though describing a real person. Investigators let him talk. They let him describe TJ's location, TJ's appearance, TJ's instructions. They thanked him for his cooperation. They said they'd look into TJ. And then, in exchange for 2 double cheeseburgers, Golsby told them where to find the gun. It was in a storm drain. They sent officers immediately. They lowered a magnet into the drain and pulled it back. There was the gun. It matched perfectly to the bullets removed from Reagan's body. TJ did not exist. Investigators saturated the area Golsby said TJ operated out of. They showed his description to every contact they had. Nobody had ever heard of anyone matching that description, going by that name. TJ was complete fiction. There was only ever one person in that car with Reagan Tokes. Then from jail, Golsby made phone calls to his girlfriend, to a friend. The calls were recorded. The automated warning played at the start, telling him the conversation was being monitored and could be used in legal proceedings. He said it anyway. I did it. I killed that girl for the money. $60. January 2018. Brian Lee Golsby was charged with aggravated murder, rape, kidnapping, and robbery. He entered a plea of not guilty. Prosecution laid out everything the jury needed. The GPS data, placing him at every location. The ATM footage with the figure in the passenger seat. The DNA from the cigarette butts. The DNA from Reagan's body. The gun matched to the bullets. The gas can purchased on camera. The Kate Spade purse. That last one requires a moment. The night Golsby came home after killing Reagan, he gave his girlfriend a gift. An early Valentine's Day present, he told her. A Kate Spade purse. She asked where he got it. He said he just wanted to give it to her. She didn't know whose it was. She took it home. It was Reagan's. She took the stand and told the jury. She had visited him in jail after his arrest. She asked him directly if he had done it. He shook his head. Yes, she started to cry. She dropped the phone and walked out. The defense argued that Golsby was not intelligent enough to have premeditated this crime. The attorney stood before the jury and said, with all due respect, if he had truly planned to avoid getting caught, he would not have committed murder while wearing a GPS ankle monitor. He was not capable, she argued, of prior calculation and design. Prosecution was not buying it. Smart enough to wear gloves at the alley. Smart enough to try to burn the car. Smart enough to invent TJ in elaborate detail. Smart enough, the prosecutor told the jury, to know that if Reagan Tokes walked out of that park alive, she was going to walk into a courtroom and point directly at him. He was smart enough for that. The jury deliberated. Guilty, on every count, every single one. Then came the penalty phase. Prosecution wanted death. Reagan's family wanted death, and 8 of the 12 jurors agreed. But it required unanimity. 4 did not vote for death. Golsby stood before the courtroom and addressed the Tokes family for the first time. He admitted there was no TJ. He said he made TJ up to try to get out of what he did. He apologized to the family. And then he said the words that Reagan herself had said in a dark field in February while he stood over her with a gun.
Today I would like to apologize to the Tokes family for the crimes I committed against his daughter, friends, and family. When I first got locked up, I lied on everything. Said it was TJ. There is no TJ. TJ's not real. I made TJ up because I was trying to wiggle my way out of the crime. And I committed it. But the only other thing I have to say is, please have mercy on me. That's all I'd like to say.
All right. You can have a seat. Thank you.
Reagan's parents did not accept what the sentencing meant as an ending, because it wasn't. there was still a question that hadn't been answered in any courtroom. A question about the device, about the database, about the 6 robberies, about the 52 infractions, about the early release, about every moment between November 2016 and February 8, 2017, when someone could have looked at what Brian Golsby was doing and sent him back to prison. Lisa and Toby filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. Their argument was not complicated. Their daughter was murdered by a violent offender wearing a court-ordered GPS monitor that nobody was monitoring.
More than a year after her life was cut short, tonight the parents of Reagan Tokes have filed a wrongful death lawsuit.
While her killer spends the rest of his life in prison, the family of the Ohio State student is suing the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, along with the company that provides housing to people released from prison.
NBC4 investigator Tom Susi joining us now with details on this lawsuit.
Colleen and Mike, I read through this 14-page lawsuit a few times. Claims are both mind-boggling and concerning. The bottom line, according to this lawsuit, Reagan Tokes would still be alive if DRC and the company that provided Brian Golsby housing would have done their jobs.
And had the monitoring gone on the way it should have gone on, he would have been violated and arrested, and this murder would not have happened.
Cincinnati attorney Robert Newman filed this lawsuit on behalf of the Tokes family against the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections and the Exit Program, a company that provides housing to people released from prison. Until his arrest, Brian Golsby lived in one of their homes. Last January and February, Golsby kidnapped, raped, and murdered OSU student Reagan Tokes. He also beat and robbed 7 other people, all while wearing a GPS ankle monitor.
They didn't read the readings of the GPS tracking device, so they didn't know that he was violating curfew over and over again.
Golsby was equipped with the ankle monitor November of 2016 after serving 6 years in prison for robbery and attempted rape.
They just were blindfolded with respect to their responsibilities to watch out for somebody who just got out of prison and who was regarded as a very dangerous person.
A spokesperson with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections told me they can't comment on pending litigation. What about the company that provided Brian Golsby with a place to live? Tom Susi, NBC4. Trying to find Dr. Michelle Johnson or Rick Reynolds?
Neither one are here right now.
Now, just moments ago, I received this statement from the Exit Program. It says they are not contractually obligated to provide monitoring in his his ankle monitor was administered by an outside third party. We will work with our attorneys to continue to address this matter in court and will not discuss it further in public. In other words, this could turn into a very long court battle.
The lawsuit was dismissed. A judge ruled that the state of Ohio had no legal duty to protect Reagan Tokes from Brian Lee Golsby. No duty. Lisa and Toby appealed to the Ohio Supreme Court. The Ohio Supreme Court declined to hear the case. They didn't rule against the family. They simply decided the question wasn't worth considering. Think about what it means to sit in a courthouse as a parent and hear that. You have buried your daughter. You have sat in the same room as the man who killed her for weeks of testimony. You have watched him receive a sentence that did not match what he did. And now, a judge is looking at you and telling you that the state which released him, monitored him, failed to track 6 robberies on his ankle device, declined to recall him on multiple occasions before February 8th, ultimately allowed him to walk to your daughter's car, owed her nothing, no duty. That was the answer. Here is what Lisa and Toby Tokes did with that answer. They didn't stop. They had every reason to. They were grieving. The courts had turned them away. The system that killed their daughter had now twice looked at them and said there was nothing to be done. They had every reason to fold. They didn't fold. They went to the Ohio legislature. They testified. They explained, in plain language, precise detail, exactly what had happened and exactly what needed to change.
Tonight, the mother of murdered Ohio State student Reagan Tokes says lawmakers' actions are long overdue after a House vote yesterday. House Bill 166 now moves to the Senate. It would drastically change how ex-prisoners are monitored and housed once released.
But as 10 investigates uncovered, the state's inability to closely watch these offenders on parole laid a path to Reagan's death and the deaths of other women. Lisa Tokes spoke exclusively with Chief Investigative Reporter Bennett Haberly.
Reagan Tokes' murder was a test of perception versus reality. The perception that if a convicted sex offender like Brian Golsby were released from prison homeless and assigned a GPS ankle monitor, that someone, somewhere, would monitor his activities, would know if he were committing a string of robberies. The perception that the state's parole authority would follow its own policies and put safeguards in place that would alert someone if someone like Golsby did something wrong. The reality, that didn't happen.
There are a lot of systemic failures that have to happen in order for this crime to occur.
Representative Kristen Boggs reminded lawmakers of that Wednesday before the House voted unanimously to approve House Bill 166, known as the Reagan Tokes Act. While a portion of the bill dealing with criminal sentencing already became law, this bill would beef up how ex-prisoners are monitored while reducing the burden of heavy caseloads on parole officers. It would also require that if someone like Golsby was assigned a GPS ankle monitor, that there are boundaries in place, detailing where they can go and not go, a landscape that wasn't a reality when Golsby kidnapped, raped, and later shot Reagan 5 years ago.
Two bills with local ties. They are headed to the Ohio Senate, both named after victims of violent crime and both aimed at closing gaps in Ohio law the lawmakers say allowed injustice to happen. Allie Henner's at the Alert Desk with more.
Yeah, Tricia, that's right. So first, the Ohio House has passed the Reagan Tokes and Patrick Herringer Act, a bill that would tighten monitoring of people on post-release control. Now, this legislation is named after two Ohioans murdered by individuals on parole. One of them, Patrick Herringer, was a 46-year-old Cincinnati man killed inside his own home in June of 2025. We've covered this story extensively. His killer, Mordecai Black, was on parole at the time, and the state had lost track of him. Black has since been indicted on 14 counts. If convicted, he faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. House Bill 667 is what it's called, would make several changes to how the state tracks people on post-release control. Under the bill, judges would have more discretion to send repeat offenders to prison. Any warrants issued for Tier 1 offenses or parole violations would have to be entered into state and national crime databases within 48 hours. Emergency dispatchers would also have to be notified within 48 hours of a warrant being issued, and the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections would be required to contract with a single vendor for continuous real-time GPS monitoring.
2017, 3 months after Reagan was murdered, Ohio State University held its spring commencement. Nearly 12,000 students received their degrees that day. The announcer reached a name on the list, Reagan Delaney Tokes, Bachelor of Arts. Her family stood, Toby, Lisa, Mackenzie. They walked across the stage together. 12,000 people rose to their feet. Toby had emailed Reagan a link to diploma frames a few weeks before she died. She had posted about it online. She said she teared up just looking at them. She had wanted this since she was 8 years old, standing in a stadium with her dad, deciding where she was going to college. She got there. Her family stood on that stage and accepted her degree on her behalf, and the auditorium gave a standing ovation because that was all that was left to give her. A standing ovation and her name called out loud in the building she had loved since she was a little girl. Here is what I want you to carry when this video ends. Reagan Tokes did nothing wrong on the night of February 8, 2017. She finished her shift at 9:45 p.m. She walked to her car on a route she knew. She was texting her dad. She was going home. There is not a single decision she made that night that was a mistake. Not one. The man who took her from that street had been in the system for years. His record was documented. His violence was established. His infractions were counted, all 52 of them, and recorded in a file that someone could have opened at any point and acted on. The ankle monitor recorded 6 violent crimes in the 2 weeks before he walked toward her car. Everything was there. Every tool the system needed to stop what happened was already in place and already working. Someone just had to look. Nobody looked. And then a judge told her parents the state owed her nothing. Reagan Tokes wanted to open a practice and help people struggling with their mental health. She had the grades, the drive, the warmth, the understanding of what it means to be human in a way that takes most people a lifetime to develop. She was born with it. She saved insects from being stepped on. She called her dad every day. She got into the only university she ever wanted to attend because she decided at 8 years old that she was going to. And she meant it. In a dark field in Grove City, Ohio, in February 2017, with no shoes, no phone, no one coming, she asked for the one thing that should never have been in question. "I just want to live." She said it over and over. She deserved every single year she asked for. She deserved all of them. If Reagan's story stayed with you, and I believe it did, then do one thing, right now. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and turn on notifications. Every case on this channel is told the way it deserves to be told. With the full weight of it, with honesty, with respect for the people at the center of it. Share this video. Every share puts Reagan's name in front of more people. And that matters. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And tell me this, because I genuinely want to know, do you think the second part of the Reagan Tokes Act should already be law? Real-time monitoring. Real accountability. The guardrails that should have been there from the beginning. Lisa and Toby are still fighting for it. Tell me what you think. The very least we can do for Reagan Tokes is make sure the world knows exactly who she was. Say her name in the comments. Reagan Delaney Tokes, 21 years old, psychology major, Ohio State University. She was going to change lives. She already has. I'll see you in the next one.
It's hard to believe 10 years ago this week, a little Sarasota girl was abducted at a car wash, sparking a search that captured the attention of the entire country. Surveillance video caught the moment that 11-year-old Carly Brusha was grabbed by a stranger. And after a massive manhunt, it was discovered that she had been raped and murdered.
We're learning that Susan Shorpen has passed away. Shorpen is the mother of Carly Brusha, the 11-year-old girl whose murder made national headlines in 2004. ABC 7's Rick Adams is joining us live from Carly's Garden near the Central Church of Christ in Sarasota with more tonight. Rick.
Yeah, Haley, over the years, a lot of folks have been saddened by Carly's death. Tonight, they are all grieving for her mom.
It was the evening of February 1st, 2004. It was Super Bowl Sunday, and 11-year-old Carly Brusha was taking a shortcut back home from a friend's house when she passed behind a car wash and was never heard from again.
And it captured the actual moment of the abduction.
The video and the ensuing search captivated the nation. Captain Jeff Bell was a lieutenant at the time.
We definitely felt the pressure of the obligation that we had on our shoulders. Ultimately, what we were trying to do is get her home alive.
Sadly, that never happened. Her body was found behind a church a few days later. She had been raped and murdered. Joseph Smith was later charged and is now on death row.
He was snatched off the streets and then murdered. Her abduction caught on camera. And now the Sarasota case that shocked the entire country is back in the spotlight. Good evening, I'm Paul Agrone.
And I'm Laura Harris. 11-year-old Carly Brusha's killer may escape the death penalty after a recent Florida Supreme Court decision.
February 1st, 2004, Sarasota, Florida. It is Super Bowl Sunday. 90 million people are watching a screen. The New England Patriots and the Carolina Panthers. Halftime, Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson. The most watched Super Bowl in American television history.
Top B Super Bowl 38 halftime show. Starring Janet Jackson, Kid Rock,
T. Diddy, Nelly, Jessica Simpson, and Justin Timberlake. Produced by MTV.
The streets are empty. Every family is inside, which is why no one sees her. A little girl in a red shirt and blue jeans with a pink backpack, walking alone down a road lined with businesses, 1 mile from her front door, in daylight, on a Sunday evening in a city where this kind of thing did not happen. There is a camera mounted at the rear of a car wash on North Tuttle Avenue. Motion triggered. New. The owner had only just had it installed. When that camera detects movement and begins recording at 6:21 in the evening, it captures something no one was supposed to see. A man steps into the frame behind her. He stops in front of her. They speak for a few seconds. Then he reaches out, takes hold of her arm, and leads her away. She doesn't fight. She doesn't run. She goes with him. And then she is gone from the frame, and the camera records nothing but an empty parking lot. Her name was Carly Jane Brucia. She was 11 years old, a 6th grader, a daughter, a best friend. The man on that footage had been arrested 13 times. He had violated his parole. A warrant for his arrest had been sitting on a desk, unprocessed, for over a month. He should not have been free that Sunday evening. He was free anyway. Before we go any further, what you're about to watch is a real crime, a real child, a real family. Some of the details in this story are deeply disturbing. Viewer discretion is once again strongly advised. Welcome to the Indeed Horrific Cases. Tonight, we venture into a nightmare so evil it defies comprehension. Take a moment to hit subscribe, drop a like, and please let us know where you're watching from. And now, we begin. Sarasota, Florida, 2004. A city of just over 50,000 people on the Gulf Coast, about 60 miles south of Tampa, pressed up against the warm blue edge of the Gulf of Mexico. A city of white sand beaches and open-air markets, and a downtown arts district that drew people from across the state. A place where families settled and stayed, where children rode bikes to their friends' houses, and parents felt comfortable with a level of independence that by 2004 was already starting to feel like a relic of another era. A place with the kind of familiar, comfortable rhythm that makes people feel safe, where a 1-mile walk in the early evening felt perfectly reasonable, where a stranger approaching a child on a public road, in daylight, with businesses on either side, felt like something that simply did not happen here. And legally, 2004 was a different world than the one we live in now. The Amber Alert system had only just been adopted at the federal level in 2003. Sex offender registries existed, but the infrastructure to monitor violent repeat offenders on probation and parole was inconsistent, under-resourced, and riddled with gaps that a determined predator could fall through entirely. In Florida in 2004, the system governing what happened when a parolee violated the terms of their release was, in practice, deeply flawed. A man could miss a check-in, test positive for narcotics, be cited for another offense, and still remain free while the paperwork that should have remanded him moved slowly through a system that had more cases than it had bandwidth to process. The man who took Carly Brucia had done all of those things. The warrant for his arrest existed. It simply had not been issued. The system to catch him was in place. The system to stop him wasn't. Carly Jane Brucia was born on March 16, 1992, in Long Island, New York, to parents Joe and Susan, a couple who had met and married in New York before the marriage ended, while Carly was still a toddler. After the divorce, Susan moved south to Sarasota, Florida, and built a new life there. She eventually remarried and had a son. Joe remained in New York, but stayed close. Carly flew back for holidays and summers. She talked to her father regularly. She was the kind of daughter who made sure the people she loved knew she was thinking about them. In Sarasota, Carly went to McIntosh Middle School, where she was in the 6th grade. She sang in the school chorus. She played sports. She loved Jennifer Lopez and the mall and afternoons at the beach with people she cared about. Her teachers described her in the way that teachers describe students who make the work feel worth doing. Lovely. Delightful. A child who walked into a room and changed the quality of it just by being there. Her principal called her a shining light. It is the kind of phrase that gets said so often it risks losing its meaning. But every adult who was asked about Carly Brucia used a version of it, independently, as if the phrase was just the accurate one. She was the kind of person who greeted everyone she passed with a hug, full and warm and unhesitating, the kind of embrace that tells the other person they have been genuinely seen. Her father described it that way. Her aunt described it that way. Her teachers described it that way. It was the first thing people mentioned about her, every time, because it was the most true thing about her. She made people feel welcomed into whatever room she was in. She was also, at 11, beginning to think further ahead. She told her aunt, on what turned out to be their last visit together, that she wanted to come back to New York for high school. She wanted to be closer to her father. She was mapping a future. She was thinking past the 6th grade, past McIntosh Middle School, past Sarasota, toward a version of herself that was still just coming into view. By every measure, Carly Brucia's life was exactly where it was supposed to be. There is one more detail, a small thing, really, the kind of thing that sits quietly inside a person without weight or consequence, until suddenly it has all the weight in the world. Carly trusted people. It was not naivety. It was not carelessness. It was something her family had raised into her, alongside the warmth and the hugs and the instinct to make people feel welcomed. She believed, the way children who have been loved correctly believe, that people were generally good. It mattered. February 1st, 2004, Super Bowl Sunday. Carly had spent the previous night at a friend's house, a sleepover, the easy and uncomplicated kind that occupies a Saturday night in 6th grade. Sunday passed the same way, the two of them together, unhurried. But by late afternoon, Carly was ready to go home. She had school the next morning, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. She wanted to be with her family. At around 6 o'clock in the evening, she told her friend's mother she would walk. It was 1 mile. The route ran down a main road. It was still light out. By every reasonable measure of that particular city, at that particular moment in time, it was not a dangerous thing to do. Her friend's mother had a feeling she couldn't name, something quiet and uneasy that she couldn't point to a reason for. After Carly left, she picked up the phone and called Susan, just to let her know, just to say, Carly is on her way. Susan said no, immediately and without hesitation. She would not have permitted Carly to walk alone. She called her husband Stephen and told him to get in the car. Stephen drove the route. He drove it once, then again. He circled the surrounding streets. He drove for nearly an hour. He did not find her anywhere. At approximately 7:30 in the evening, Susan called 911.
911, what's the location of the emergency? My daughter is missing. She's gone. We can't find her anywhere. I've called all her friends. How old is she? 11. And when was the last time that she was seen? It was at 6 o'clock. Around 6 o'clock.
Police were dispatched. They arrived at Susan's home, took a description, knocked on doors, searched the neighborhood until 3 in the morning. No sign of Carly. When she failed to appear at school the following day, the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office made a decision. They were bringing in bloodhounds. A dog named Ruby was given one of Carly's pillowcases. She put her nose to the ground and worked. She traced a route that was not quite the direct path home. A slight deviation, a shortcut. Ruby moved through it steadily until she reached the back of a building at 4715 North Tuttle Avenue, Eve's Car Wash. The trail stopped there. Completely. Officers sealed the area. They spoke with the owner, Mike Evanoff, who mentioned that he had recently installed surveillance cameras, motion-triggered. He thought they might have caught something. They went inside. They pulled the footage. They found the camera at the rear of the property and pressed play. The timestamp read, 6:21 p.m., February 1st, 2004. A girl in a red shirt and blue jeans with a pink backpack walked into the frame. Then a man walked into the frame. He was approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, dark hair, tattoos on his arms. He was wearing what appeared to be a mechanic's uniform with a name tag too blurry to make out. He stepped in front of her. They exchanged a few words. Then he reached out, took her by the arm, and led her away from the camera. She spoke to him. She did not run from him. She went with him the way a child goes with someone who has offered to help. Because that is who she was. Because she had been raised to believe that people were generally good, and she had no reason yet to know that this one was not. The footage lasted seconds. It told investigators everything, and almost nothing at the same time. One thing was clear to every officer in that room. Carly Brucia was in grave danger. The footage was released to the public. Within hours, the tips began arriving. Hundreds of them. A creepy neighbor, a coworker who walked a certain way, an ex-boyfriend, a man someone had seen at a gas station. Investigators sorted through all of it carefully, following each thread, eliminating names one by one. 2 names drew serious attention in the early days. The first was Stephen, Carly's stepfather. Proximity placed him at the top of the list.
Susan says, "Hey, can you go pick up Carly?" She started walking down Beers. I just said, "Where's she at?" She was Connie's. I said, "That's the one over here." And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, I'm leaving right now." And out the door I went. Okay.
His alibi held. Susan confirmed it. Physical evidence placed him nowhere near the car wash. He was ruled out quickly and completely. The second was a man named Ron, the boyfriend of Carly's friend's mother. A man who had been at the house the night before and who drove a red truck that Stephen had spotted in the area around the time of Carly's disappearance. Investigators brought him in. He cooperated immediately.
Carly spent the night Saturday?
Yes.
Anything?
Sunday morning, I woke up. I don't know. Nothing happened Saturday night. Okay. You know, they were giddy and all night long. You know, I was sleeping in the other room. So I woke up Sunday morning, like I normally do, get up, get ready for work.
So if you didn't see her at any point after...
During the day?
During
No.
the day, or if you went to work?
Absolutely not.
Is that what you wore to work Sunday? Or did you...
No, actually, I had a Super Bowl shirt on yesterday.
A great shirt. Is that?
I haven't the slightest idea, so it's definitely not me. It does look like me, doesn't it, though?
Yeah, it kind of looks like you. That's why we're talking to you.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely would not be me there. Honest.
The deputies that you spoke to that night think that that's you.
It's not me. Blow it up. Do what you got to do. Verify my time where I was. You know, I'm more than glad to work with you guys than anything. Believe me, there is no way. I mean, that was me. Honest to God, no way at all. I would never put anybody through that. No way.
How do we get past that, though? That's
verifying where I was at 6:21.
His employer confirmed he had been at work. A search of his vehicle found nothing. Ron was eliminated. 2 names, 2 dead ends, and buried inside the hundreds of tips that were still coming in, called in not once but by several different people independently. A name that kept appearing across separate lines of inquiry. Joseph Smith. But before that name could be fully examined, investigators had found something else in the footage. A pale yellow 1992 Buick Century station wagon pulling into the car wash parking lot exactly 3 minutes before Carly walked into frame. It arrived. It waited. After she was taken, it left. It had not been passing through. It had been positioned. They needed to find the Buick. They would. But not yet in the way they expected. Joseph Peter Smith was 37 years old, originally from Brooklyn, New York, a mechanic by trade, unemployed, a father of 3 young daughters, a man renting a room in a house on the east side of Sarasota, and a man with a criminal history that began in 1993 and had never fully stopped. 13 arrests in the state of Florida in just over a decade. Heroin possession, prescription drug fraud, cocaine possession, aggravated battery, kidnapping, false imprisonment. He had served time. He had been released. He had violated his parole conditions almost immediately after release and had been given drug offender probation in lieu of remand. A month before Carly Brucia was taken, local authorities had submitted a formal request for a warrant for his arrest based on additional parole violations. The warrant had not been issued. The paperwork was not yet complete. Joseph Smith was free. When investigators arrived at the house where Smith was renting a room, a property belonging to a couple named Jeffrey and Naomi, they found him calm, cooperative. He said he had been home that Sunday watching the Super Bowl with Jeffrey and Naomi. He said he had never been near Eve's car wash. He looked at a photograph from the surveillance footage and said, without visible concern, "That looks like me, but it's not me." They asked to see his tattoos. He rolled up his sleeves. Same placement as the man on the footage. They searched his vehicle. They found drug paraphernalia. Since he was on probation, that was sufficient grounds for arrest. He was taken into custody on a technical violation. Then Naomi arrived home, driving a yellow Buick Century station wagon. Investigators looked at the car. They looked at each other. They asked Naomi where Joseph had been on the evening of February 1st. She confirmed his alibi. He was home. He was with them all evening. Then Jeffrey came to the station. He said his wife had gotten the times wrong. He said that on the afternoon of February 1st, Joseph had asked to borrow the car. He said he'd be gone for 15 minutes. He was gone until 7:30 the following morning, arriving back in his mechanic's uniform, clean, composed, in Jeffrey's words, like he'd had a wonderful night's sleep.
Came out and said, "Hey, can I use your car?" I said, "Well, just go and just, how long are you going to be for 15 minutes? So I said, "All right, go ahead." What was he wearing at the time? His mechanic suit. Gray. Yellow. When I got up at 6:30, no car. 7:30, I'm ready to walk out the door. Who showed up? Joe. Where the hell have you been? What do you look like 7:30 Monday morning? Real clean. Like, he had a good night's sleep, or he's real happy, or he just looked like he had a wonderful night. It was just, the way he acted, from what I know, was just very strange. And I see the stuff on the mirror. You know something? I guess there was a dark side I just never saw.
Jeffrey also said this. Before Joseph left with the Buick, the odometer had been at a specific reading. When the car was returned, it had traveled 300 miles. Jeffrey handed the Buick over to investigators. Inside, they found 2 hairs. 7 fibers later confirmed to be consistent with the red shirt Carly had been wearing, and biological material on the rear seat that would later be matched by DNA to Joseph Smith.
We gotta sit down and we have to talk. This room, it's not the truth. It's the most important thing that goes on in this room, is the truth.
I was already advised to talk to a lawyer.
Who advised you? Okay, correct. That means you and I can't.
Joseph asked for a lawyer. His brother John started talking. John Smith had watched the surveillance footage on the news the day after Carly disappeared. He recognized the man immediately. The walk. Joseph had injured his back and undergone surgery. It had changed the way he moved. Anyone who knew Joseph well would have seen it. John's girlfriend saw it the same moment he did. Later that night, Joseph had appeared at John's door unannounced, still in his mechanic's uniform, not in his usual shoes. He was wearing boots. He never wore boots. He wouldn't say what he wanted. He wouldn't come inside. He stood in the doorway until John shut it. The next day, at the shop where Joseph worked, he had washed his hands repeatedly. Washed them though they were already clean. He told his boss he might need to leave the state suddenly. He didn't say why. Investigators arranged for John to visit Joseph in custody. The meeting was approved through Joseph's own legal counsel. It was a brother, sitting with a brother in a room. John came out and told investigators that Joseph hadn't said anything. He was lying. That evening, John called the FBI. He believed his phone was tapped. He spoke in a way that implied he was ready to share information. The agents listened carefully and understood what had happened. Joseph had told John something. John, believing the line was monitored, was calling in to report what he'd been told. 3 officers went to John's home immediately. John gave them an address, directions, a location he had gone to look for himself the night before, after Joseph had described it, because he needed to know if his brother was telling the truth. 6221 Proctor Road, near I-75, behind the Central Church of Christ. At 1 o'clock in the morning on February 5, 2004, officers moved through thick brush in the dark field behind that church. They found her there, along a fence line, exactly where John had said she would be. Carly Brucia was 11 years old. She had been gone for 4 days. The medical examiner's report documented ligature marks on her neck, ligature marks on her wrists, indicating she had been bound, evidence of sexual assault. Her cause of death was ligature strangulation. She had been dragged to where she was found. Joseph Smith had removed her clothing and her pink backpack and placed them in separate dumpsters at different locations across the city, one by one, to slow the trail. The DNA evidence recovered from Carly's clothing was matched to Joseph Smith. The probability of a coincidental match, 1 in 32 quintillion. 2 hairs from the Buick, 7 fibers matching her shirt, biological material matching his DNA, a confession made to his brother, 11 seconds of footage showing him taking her by the arm and leading her away, and the fact that he had been able to tell John, from a jail cell, exactly where her body was. It was a complete case. At a press conference shortly after, Sheriff Borwell stood at the podium. When he spoke, his voice broke.
The body of a beautiful 11-year-old girl, Carly Brucia, has been found. Joseph Smith is under arrest for the abduction and murder of Carly.
The community that had stapled her face to every telephone pole in Sarasota, that had gathered outside her home with candles, that had written, "We love you, Carly," on banners, and held them in the dark. They went to the church and laid flowers at the place where she had been found. McIntosh Middle School opened its doors and offered grief counseling for anyone who needed it. Parents in Sarasota, in the weeks that followed, were afraid to let their daughters walk to the mailbox. In December 2005, a jury found Joseph Peter Smith guilty of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual battery on a child under the age of 12. They recommended the death penalty by a vote of 10-2. On March 15, 2006, Judge Andrew Owens sentenced him to death. He said from the bench, "Carly endured unspeakable trauma, which began at the time of her kidnapping. The image of the defendant taking her arm and leading her away, no doubt will forever be etched in our minds. At 11 years of age, there is no doubt she was aware of her dire predicament and that she had little or no hope of survival. Her death was consciously and pitilessly calculated and premeditated. Joseph Smith, based on your actions, you have forfeited your right to live freely among us. May God have mercy on your soul." Smith wept at sentencing. He told the judge he couldn't remember much about what happened. He said he had been high. He asked the judge to spare his life for the sake of his children. He said it only when there was nothing else left to say. Carly's stepfather Stephen spoke afterward. He said, "I thought I'd feel a lot different, but it still hurts. It doesn't change anything. I just feel that Carly has been heard. Her soul is gone now. Now it's a matter of time to wait and watch Joe Smith die." Carly's mother was not in the courtroom. She was incarcerated on drug charges. She had turned to drugs, she said, to survive the pain of losing her daughter. Some things break people in ways that no one standing outside them can fully understand. A month before Carly was abducted, local authorities had filed a formal request for a warrant to arrest Joseph Smith for violating the conditions of his parole. He had been cited. He had been reported. The paperwork existed, but the warrant had not yet been issued because the administrative process had not yet completed. It was sitting on a desk, unprocessed, while Joseph Smith drove freely through Sarasota on Super Bowl Sunday. Had that warrant been issued when it should have been, Joseph Smith would have been in custody on February 1st, 2004. Carly Brucia would have walked home. So Joe Brucia decided to change it. He contacted Florida Representative Katherine Harris and asked her to do something so that no other parent would have to ask the same question he was asking. 3 months before Carly was murdered, the system already had reason to bring Joseph Smith back into custody. "We didn't act on it in time. We have to close that gap. We have to make sure that when the system identifies a dangerous repeat offender in violation of his release, it acts, not eventually, immediately. Representative Harris introduced legislation named Carly's Law. The bill would require that federal felons be taken back into custody if they committed another felony offense, a crime of violence, or a sexual offense against someone under the age of 16 while on supervised release. It also extended the Amber Alert grant program that helped issue alerts for abducted children at risk. We must act now to protect our children from criminal repeat offenders who would use society's second chance to commit more acts of violence. The bill faced resistance on cost grounds. The state's corrections system estimated it would cost nearly $1 billion to remand all offenders with records comparable to Joseph Smith's. Joe Brucha's response was the response of a father who had buried his daughter at 11 years old. I find it very offensive that they say it costs too much money. No one has the right to put a price on my daughter's head, or any other child's. Carly's Law did not pass in its original form, but the conversation it forced did not end. The question Joe Brucha had asked, how many times does a man have to violate parole before the system decides he is too dangerous to remain free, kept being asked in Florida and across the country. In the years that followed, Carly's cousin created the Rose Brucha Educational Foundation, a nonprofit that provides a stranger safety awareness program, free of charge, to elementary-age children across the United States and around the world.
Child abduction is the second fastest growing crime in our nation, with over 21,700 children abducted each year. That means that one child per state per day disappears, possibly forever. As a father, I'm doing my part by joining the Rose Brucha Educational Foundation's fight to proactively stop child abduction before our children are approached by a stranger. Please go to www.rosebrucha.org for information on how you can empower our children and keep them safe. I'm Donald Trump, and I practice stranger safety.
It's been years since Carly was taken, but it still hurts. We come here to remember her and to recommit to doing something that means the same thing doesn't happen to another child.
The death of Carly Brucha continues to serve as a reminder of the importance of safety precautions for children. She was killed 8 years ago and was last seen alive in surveillance video. Well, today the family is keeping her memory alive with a major upgrade to her memorial. SNN Local News 6 reporter Grant Boxleitner joins me now and has more on that memorial.
Well, that's right, Lena. McIntosh Middle School students are on spring break, but when they return next week, they're certainly going to see a difference in Carly's garden. 11-year-old Carly Brucha's abduction and murder in February 2004 attracted national attention. At McIntosh Middle School, a garden in memory of the former student still serves as a place for reflection.
After Carly got killed, we wanted to more memorialize that and in some manner that would provide in the future maybe some safety, education.
Family and organizers Friday unveiled a revitalized Carly's garden. It's the same day Carly would have turned 20 years old.
Susan Shorpen, the mother of Carly Brucha, died on April 10, 2017, at the age of 47.
We're learning that Susan Shorpen has passed away. Shorpen is the mother of Carly Brucha, the 11-year-old girl whose murder made national headlines in 2004. ABC 7's Rick Adams is joining us live from Carly's garden near the Central Church of Christ in Sarasota with more tonight. Rick.
Yeah, Haley, over the years, a lot of folks have been saddened by Carly's death. Tonight, they are all grieving for her mom.
Susan was a very dedicated mother, and she loved her daughter very much.
That's how Pastor Rod Myers of the Central Church of Christ is remembering Susan Shorpen. Shorpen, the mother of murdered 11-year-old Carly Brucha, died on Monday at the age of 47. Myers remembers one encounter with Shorpen very vividly.
Susan and I and Sheriff Balkwell at the time all came out, and we had a prayer near where Carly was found, and that was a very meaningful time to me to stand there with them.
Smith was sentenced to death, but this week a circuit judge ordered that he be given a new sentencing trial. This all stems from a recent Supreme Court ruling requiring juries to be unanimous when sentencing someone to death.
I don't feel it has anything to do about justice or the law.
Carly's father, Joe Bruscia, is furious.
They seem indifferent to the victims and their families. They think they can just do these things without affecting people, but it affects people a lot. He does not deserve to live on the taxpayers' expense any longer.
Joe Bruscia and his family are writing letters asking the governor and the attorney general to step in.
Do the right thing. Do what the state of Florida promised my family and I, and that is to put Joseph Smith to death. And that's, he killed my daughter.
In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court declared the Florida law unconstitutional since the death penalty could be imposed without a unanimous jury verdict. In 2018, the Florida Supreme Court also dropped Smith's death sentence. It was reinstated in 2020. Now, nearly a year later, the Florida Supreme Court has ordered a new sentencing hearing for Smith. A circuit court will only consider Smith's sentence and not his conviction. A hearing date has yet to be set.
On July 26, 2021, Joe Smith died in custody from liver cancer at the age of 55 at the Union Correctional Institution in Rayford, Florida. At the Central Church of Christ, on the grounds where her body was found, there is a garden. It is called Carly's Secret Garden. A blue bench sits inside it. On the bench, in memory of Carly Bruscia, a butterfly on either side. Carly Bruscia walked 1 mile home. She was in daylight. She was on a road with businesses on either side. There were people less than 300 feet away from her. She did not do anything wrong. She was 11 years old, in a city where that kind of thing did not happen, on the most watched Sunday in American television history, when every family was inside and every street was quiet, and a new camera at the back of a car wash happened to be running, and when a stranger stepped into her path and spoke to her, she stopped. She answered him, because she had been raised to believe that people were generally good, and she greeted everyone she passed with a hug, and she had no reason yet to know that this one was not. She was 11 years old. She would have turned 13 that March. She wanted to move back to New York for high school. She never got it. Never got the high school years. Never got the future she had been growing toward. But because of her father, who refused to stop asking why, and because of a garden at a church in Sarasota where people still come to remember, and because of a foundation that sends educators into classrooms with her name and her story, she is still present. She is still changing things. Carly Bruscia could not change what happened to her, but because of who she was, and because of who the people who loved her refused to stop being, she changed something for thousands of children she never met. If you like this coverage, join our community by subscribing and turning on notifications. Every subscriber makes it possible for us to keep creating content we're passionate about sharing with you.